Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. Let's get started with our hosts, Linda McKissack and Dana Gentry.
And welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissack.
And I'm Dana Gentry.
Hey, Dana. So I'm super pumped about what you're going to share today.
Yes.
I'm so jealous. Today was it one day with John Maxwell or two, or what was it?
It was a kind of a day and a half. It was a early dinner the night before, and then a full day the next day. So it was really good. Really good timing. Yes, I know. Linda, I feel like before I go into this, though, we have to say that our one of our favorite people in the world listened to the podcast.
Yeah, the last one we did. Yes, I was super pumped. You saw my reply back, right?
Yes, I did. Yes. Yeah. Linda and I were very excited that we received an email from the one and only Gary Keller himself saying that it was a great podcast. So we were like, we've arrived.
Yes. Yeah, that was super, super exciting that he listened to it. And he listened to that one because that one was good for anybody who cares about their health. And I know Gary cares about his health. So maybe we taught him something. I don't know.
Maybe so. I know. I love it. That's so cool. But then I thought to myself, oh gosh, I might have to actually go back and listen to that one to see how stupid I said. What did I even say on there?
I think it's better not to do that, Dana. Let's just take the win and move on.
Yep, I agree. I totally agree. So really excited about the time that I had with John Maxwell and Linda. He actually shared a lot of things that I had never heard before, some of his new stuff.
Wow.
And so one that I'm really excited to share with you guys today is all about getting out of
Set the stage though. Who was this and who got invited and what was it?
Okay, perfect. So actually I'll read you that part first. So John has decided, and he just had his 77th birthday this week, that moving from 77 to however long, God gives him, there's 4 groups of people that he's interested in mentoring. The first group are extreme high net worth people, like the royal family in Saudi Arabia, Richard Branson. He had a whole list, and it's like the highest of high net worth people that are wanting him to spend time with them. And so he said that the reason why that's number 1 is because 1, he wants to impact them, and 2, he wants to learn from them too. So it's kind of a mutual relationship. The second group are secular people with no faith. So people who are in the secular world and they don't, they aren't people of faith, because obviously that's really important to him. The third group are Christian leaders. So that's why he's mentoring a lot of pastors, etc. And he said, I thought this was funny, but also kind of true. He said the reason why he wants to do that one is because he feels like most Christians don't make people on fire for Jesus anymore. They actually make them angry.
Ooh, gosh.
And when he said that, the whole room was like, "Ooh, yeah, that's not a good thing." So, and then the fourth group is younger leaders, and he said that. So that was what this group was about. It's called High Capacity Leaders, and it's leaders of all different organizations, all different, all different everything. I mean, there were people from all different walks in the room. But the reason why he's picking this group is because he said it's longevity for him. And he said a lot of these young leaders need a father today, which I thought was really good. He said eventually I'm going to die. And he said, but I'm not going to die because I will live on in those that are the carriers of my teachings. And so he said people that were in the room to him are younger leaders, but who take his stuff and actually go out and share it and teach it with other people, either inside their organization or outside or whatever. And so he's putting together, Chad kind of spearheaded the whole thing, and he's putting together a group. This is kind of like the start of it, but that over a year time span will actually network with each other and kind of help each other build their businesses too, while getting to be with John. I think it's 2 times a year, and then other Zooms and things like that. So this was kind of like a, hey, do we think that this would work? Do we like the group? What kind of type thing? And then also John pouring into the people that were there. That obviously we had to pay to be there, but people that paid to be there, because he really wants like he wants to push out those carriers into the world so that his messages, he said he has 4 books right now in the hopper and 17 still to write.
Good Lord. That's a purpose. That's a purpose.
I know, it's wild. So he pushed Return on Failure to the end of the year, and he has High Road Leadership coming out the first week of April, I think is when he said.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And yeah, mainly for election year. But he actually said people ask him all the time what his favorite book is, and he said it's always the one that he's writing right now. But he said High Road Leadership really is like probably one of the ones he's most excited about, because he's just said he's so disgusted with the leadership in our country right now, just both sides, both parties, everywhere. So really excited about that. So that's kind of how, like, that's setting the stage. And he did a lot of Q&A. I mean, a lot of Q&A. We had hours of Q&A. We had like 2 hours the first night. We had like, I'd say probably 2 or 3 hours the second day. And that, I always loved that part of it all. But one thing that he talked about that I wanted to share with you first, that I feel like we kind of know, but we don't talk about it a ton, is the power of proximity. And I also want to get Mark Cole on the podcast. I'm gonna send him a text and see when we can get him on, because John said Mark is truly the power of proximity guy. But he said, if you think about it, we underestimate the power of proximity a lot. And he said, if you're going to do great things, you have to get around people doing great things. And when I thought about that, I thought, and yesterday I had a conversation with a really great high up leader, and I was telling him a lot. He was saying, I love this about you, and you're so great at this. And Linda, what I said, truly, I mean this. I said, it's because I had the power of proximity of being around Linda. And I said, and Linda had the power of proximity of being around Gary and Dan Sullivan. And really, if you think about it, I mean, the power of proximity is huge.
Yeah. Honestly, when I give my formula about how you attract anything in the world that you want, the reason the R is first is because there are so many relationships out there that you need to make a conscious effort to figure out how to get in that inner circle.
Yep. He talked a lot about that. And he said that the reason that Mark Cole is where he is today is because he has had the power of proximity of being around John, 7 out of 7 days a week for however many, 30 something years. But it's huge. It's impacted his life so much. The second thing he talked about quite a bit was passion, and the difference between being a top 10%er and a top 1%er. And he said, if you think about it, it's 100 times greater to be in the top 1% than the top 10%. But he said most people stop at the top 10% because it gives them usually everything that they need. And so they lose the drive or the desire to get to the top 1%.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, that's powerful.
And I was like, man, that's so true. But he said, with that, he said, there's so many lessons on passion, because he said you have to have passion to get to the top 1%. And so he said, passion will take away all of your common sense. You're caught up in what could be instead of what is. And people stay in what is too much. And so they lose the passion, because the passion is like what could be. And he said, passion doesn't wait. If you have passion, you'll pass up 99% of the people around you, because most people don't have any passion at all.
Honestly, and it goes back to that lesson of going deep instead of going wide. You can't have that kind of passion to get to 1% on too many things.
Yep, it's very true.
I mean, you got to go deep, and I'm guilty of this myself too. I have to watch myself because I want to go wide, because I love so many different, I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur, but the truth is I can only be truly that passionate to get to 1% on one thing probably.
Yep. And I actually asked him about that. My question to him was selfishly, what if every 5 years you get bored and you get an itch to do something else? Because I mean, I do. And he said that that's super common in entrepreneurs. He said that it's not necessarily a bad thing, but he said that he goes by the 10-80-10 principle, which is the first 10% of one of your businesses or passion, you're really in it. And then for the next 80%, you have a great team that runs it. And then the last 10%, you get back in to tweak it and make it like the best, make it the best of the best. And he said the reason why a lot of people get bored every 5 years, or they want to do something else, is because they've either been stuck in the 80 too long, which is what you said too. He said, or when they get back in at the 10% to tweak it, like they just stay there because they can't ever, they want it to be like 100%, and you're never going to get to 100%. So you just kind of have to be okay with it and then roll on. But he said the question that I should ask myself is, if it's not life-changing to other people, then do I want to do it? Because it should be really like changing other people's lives so much. So since that's truly the passion of mine. And so he said, if it's not changing other people's lives, should you say yes, or, do you probably need to say no? So he talked a lot about that.
Well, and I think too, we think at the 5-year mark, we think that it has to be a new thing, and it could be the thing you're doing done in a less about you way.
Yeah.
Where you're getting to do more of your unique abilities until you're ultimately just serving people with what you've learned and what you've experienced and what you've accomplished and all of that stuff. But most people see it as it has to be something new.
Yep. Yes. Very, very, very true. Yep. He talked about that. He said really he wanted everybody in the room to ask themselves at that exact moment, what are you passionate about right now? And he said, if you need the help of others to get motivated, then you've already lost, basically. If you aren't excited about what you're doing right now, like, what's it going to take to get you excited? But he said, you should ask yourself, what are you most passionate about today? And like he said, I can tell you guys right now, today I'm passionate about bringing people to Christ. I'm passionate about high road leadership. I'm passionate about mentoring people. And I'm passionate about my public schools values that I've got going into schools. He said, those are the 4 things that I'm most passionate about today. And he said, if somebody can't rattle off to you the things that they're passionate about right now today, then they might need to do some reflection. Because he said, when you're dead, you lose your passion. And we have a lot of dead people walking around, and a person with passion will always keep beating the odds. So you have to stay passionate.
Yeah. I love that.
He said, let's see about passion. Yeah, those were really, I thought about you when he said this. He said his wisdom has compounded in the last 7 or 8 years only. He said all the things that he's gotten in like the last 7 to 8 years, they've just all compounded, and he sees things from a better perspective. And so now he wants to share it. And he said, you get to a point in your life and your career where you've learned so much and you've gotten so much wisdom that all of a sudden it compounds quickly. And then you like, you want to share it. And so he said a lot of times, like, people say, if you lack wisdom, like, just ask God for it. And he said, I believe that 100%. And he said, but I also think we need more people out there who have a lot of wisdom, that now it's compounded and they need to get out and share it with other people.
So true.
He, the next thing he talked about was, he talked a lot about mentorship, which I'm not going to go like super deep into that, but he shared the story of his first, example of when he wanted to be mentored by John Wooden, and he got an opportunity to fly to California, I think it was, to have a 1-hour lunch with John Wooden. And he said he went to his, he met him at a restaurant, and he showed up with 5 pages of questions. And John Wooden said, what do you have any questions for me? And John Maxwell said, well, actually, yes, I have all these. And he slid across 5 pages. And he said, John Wooden just looked at him and said, oh, wow, well, we'll never get through these in 1 hour. And he said, well, let's just start. And he said they ended up being there till 4:30. And then John Wooden said, would you like to just come over to my condo and we can maybe just, have another snack and eat dinner and answer more of your questions? And John Maxwell said, well, sure, I would love to. And he said that began a 14-year relationship. So much so that the last thing that John Wooden did when he was in the hospital before he passed away was write the foreword for John's Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Lose, You Learn book. And he said that he has really learned how to maximize mentorship. And so he said there's 3 main things. First, you prepare. You go into any sort of mentorship, no matter what age, what level, what anything, highly prepared. The second thing you do when you get done is reflect on all the things that you learned. And then the third thing you do is act. Prioritize what you reflected on and act on it. And then go back and tell that person, these are the things that I've done. And he said, as long as you do those 3 things, like, you should have no problem getting mentors. He said the biggest problem is most people don't even ask for mentors. Like, they just, they're too scared to even ask for somebody's time.
Well, and it's back to that proximity thing. You got to go reach for the people that you feel like you want a deeper relationship with. And then you got to give before you get anything from them. Just come from giving and contribution, and then you'll get something somewhere along the way. Just give first, though, and don't worry about what you're going to get.
Yeah, he said he's never showed up to a mentor session with anybody that has mentored him without a gift. Never. He said, like, never, not one time. He never has. And he said it's not that it's necessarily about like what is the gift? Is it expensive? Is it not expensive? He said it's the thought and the intentionality behind it.
Well, he tells that story about the guy that I can't remember who the golfer is. And when they all got through, they actually made a contribution to his favorite charity. And he cried because he said no one had ever done that. Jack Nicholson. He said no one had ever. Jack Nicklaus, as Jimmy said. Yeah. So no one had ever done that at all.
Yep. He said that at the end. He told that story again when we were there. And he said that has what, because they just did the Jack Nicklaus thing the week before we did this down there. Yeah. And he said that still to this day, Jack's still coming and doing that with the group that he puts together, all because that one time that John gave him $250,000 for his charity for his time. It's unbelievable. So the biggest thing, oh my gosh, there's so much, but the biggest thing that I thought would be beneficial to share, he has a whole new lesson called How to Get Out of the People Pile. And which I love. I just loved the topic of that. But he said, like, what makes you different? What sets you apart? And we've talked about this, like having that it factor or, whatever, having the influence. He said the first thing that you need to think about and really like know in your head is God will never hold you accountable to gifts that you don't have. And he said, Joyce Meyer taught him that a long time ago. And he said, don't try to focus on the gifts that you don't have because God's only worried about the gifts that you do have. And those are the gifts that are going to get you out of the people pile. He said that he was always different because everybody else wanted to be a motivational speaker, meaning he made them feel good, but when they left, they didn't know why. And so he said that he wanted to be a motivational teacher because he wanted to make people feel good. And when they left, they knew why. Like he had given them a resource. They knew what to do. So he gave 7 ways to get out of the people pile, and I'll just hit them quick. Number 1, do something for someone that they cannot do for themselves. And he said that when you're doing that in your life, it'll get so big that all of a sudden you'll just say, oh my gosh, how did my life get this big? But he said, for example, when his first granddaughter was born and his son-in-law, you've heard this, his son-in-law, John was in the room when his daughter gave birth to their daughter. And the son-in-law said, John, I want you to cut the umbilical cord, because I guess John had never got to do that because their children are adopted. And so he said, he gave me something that I could never give myself. And he said, I knew in that moment, oh my gosh, my daughter married the right person. But really, I mean, think about that. Like that's, and he said, his son-in-law said, I knew the minute years ago that's what's something that I wanted to do for you because you've impacted me so much. So he said, you have to think about the stuff that you can do for someone that they cannot do for themselves. The second thing is do something for someone that surprises and pleases them. Because he said it's not often anymore that like we get surprised on stuff or, somebody does something that really pleases us. And this reminded me of you too. He said that every year for his grandchildren's birthday, he writes them a poem and then he reads it to them on their birthday. And so every year they know that they're going to get a poem from him.
Oh, that's awesome.
Isn't that so good? And then he said, that there was a big marketing lady, I can't remember her name, who got a chance to meet with Warren Buffett. She got to have a 30-minute lunch with Warren Buffett. No, a 10-minute appointment with Warren Buffett. And she called John and said, what should I do? And he said, do something that will surprise and please him. And so she did all this research and she found out that he was obsessed with cherry Coke. And so she just showed up to the 10-minute appointment with a cold cherry Coke on ice and brought a glass. And when she sat down, she popped the cherry Coke and poured it for Warren Buffett. And the 10-minute appointment turned into a 3.5-hour meeting.
I love it. That one gives me chill bumps. I love that one.
I had never heard that before. I was like, man, that's good. So his purpose in saying that was it's the little things. Like he said, she spent $2 on a cherry Coke and it gave her from 10 minutes to 3.5 hours with Warren Buffett. Wow, and he said, that's how you get out of the people pile. Number 3, do something for someone that no one else has ever done before. And that can be, kind of a hard one because you have to really know what no one else has ever done for them before. But he said there's a whole bunch of stuff that's never been done before. So find out what it is. And he told us that he started a Mont Blanc pen collection for Mark because John collects the pens. So John told Mark, every country that we visit, I'm going to buy you the whatever Mont Blanc pen that you want from that country. And so you will have the largest Mont Blanc pen collection in the world. And he said, I knew that no one else in the world had ever had a Mont Blanc pen from every single country. And I wanted Mark to have that. And so Mark stood up and said, I actually have 38 pens from 38 different countries now, which he already has the largest collection in the world now.
Wow. That's impressive.
Isn't that so crazy? But he said, so that's when he said, like, there's so much stuff that's never been done before. Just figure out what it is and come up with an idea and do it. Number 4 was do something for someone that creates a personal, special memory. And that's when he talked about the Jack Nicklaus thing. He said, it's not about you. It's all about giving them an experience that they'll never forget. He said that the 2 days before the event, for our event, when he had the Jack Nicklaus, Ed Milet came to the Jack Nicklaus event. And he said, and Ed had a personal goal of meeting Jack, and he had never met him before. And so John said, Ed called him and said, like, my plane's running late. Unfortunately, I'm going to be like about 45 minutes late to the dinner, but I just want you to know I'm coming. And so John said he purposely sat next to Jack Nicklaus. And he said when Ed walked in, Ed came straight over to John and said hi first. And then John said, hey, I have your seat. And John got up and said, this is your seat next to Jack. And Ed said, John, no, this is your seat. And John said, no, this is your seat. Like, I want to create a special memory for you now that you're here. And so you sit next to Jack. And so John said, you just have to think of those things. Like, it's just intention. Linda, so much of it is just intentionality.
Yeah. It is.
And he has mastered it. I mean, he just thinks of every intentional thing. He said so many things cost absolutely nothing. It's you being intentional beforehand, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. So true. And I think it's creating a muscle that automatically thinks this way. I think it's what I always tell people about recruiting and things like that and finding opportunities. When you build that muscle, you instinctively do it, and it comes a little more natural all the time.
Yep. Totally. Yep. Number 5, do something for someone that's a once in a lifetime experience. And the thing he said with that is just remember, like, the most important luck you'll ever have is who luck. And so you just want to create memories everywhere you go. And he talked about, how they do the hokey pokey in every country and on every plane ride. And he said he's just trying to create something that is a special once in a lifetime experience memory together. And he didn't go deep on that. He just said, make sure that you're doing that. Number 6 was do something for someone that exceeds their expectations. Because he said so many people now are just like culturally accustomed to just not having their expectations even met. But if they are met, it's like bare bones minimum. And so he said, you are a surefire to get out of the people pile if you just exceed somebody's expectations. He said, just remember, if everyone else is doing it, it's not really so hot. And I was like, that's true. Very true.
Yeah.
And then the last one, number 7, was do something for someone that they can receive because it only comes from you and no one else. And so he said he had to have a tough conversation with Margaret, his wife, over the last few months because they have so much stuff. And he wants to start giving some of their personal things to people that they care about. And because he said there's nothing like receiving something that's like something from somebody was their personal something, and you really love and care about them. So he said a personal gift, something that's yours that you've collected or whatever. He said he's already starting to line up and give those things away to people. And he said John has met with one of his mentors, and I don't even know if he said who it was, since 1980. And he said every time he meets with him, John brings him a personal gift of something that was John's, whether it's like one of his books he's collected or, one of his Bibles or whatever it is. But he said, just like start thinking about what's something personal that's yours that you could start giving to other people. And he said, you all may not be at the time in your life like where you want to do or you're ready to do that. But he said at 77, I looked at Margaret and said, we have all this crap.
Yeah.
He's like, it could be special for us to give that to somebody.
That's only fine as long as it's not Margaret's crap.
That's right.
As long as it's some of John's crap he's wanting to give away. But I think when I think about that, I think about the story, and I can't remember where I heard it, but you can either be a reservoir or a river.
He said
And
that. Yeah.
I read somewhere one time that when you're a river, your life can't take in other blessings or gifts, I guess, as long as you're holding on to things. Like you want to let go of things because it keeps the flow going like a river.
Yep.
And I've always remembered that, and I would probably have to start with books. Books I can give away because I have so many, right?
Yes, totally. Yep. He did say that. That's in my notes. There be a reservoir, not a river, somewhere in here. I have it. I'm trying to figure out where he talked about that. But he said, as a leader, to conclude getting out of the people pile, and I think he is going to write a book about this, but he said, as a leader, you better be out of the people pile, because if you're trying to lead people and you want to attract people who are out of the people pile, but you aren't out of the people pile, it'll never work. And so he said, like, your modeling, your work ethic, everything should be better if you're a leader, because he said, how do we take people with us rather than separating us from our people is we start by being out of the people pile first. Oh my gosh. It was just, there were so many good things from him on that. I mean, so many good things.
I love it.
One more last thing he said. I loved this. He said, just remember, like he said, you're not really that amazing. Your gifts are amazing, but God gave you those gifts and they're actually on loan. When people tell you you're amazing, they're actually confusing you with your gifts. And those are not the same, because all of us are just one decision away from stupid at any moment.
So true.
It's so true.
It reminds me of my mantra I had that time too, when my son-in-law was a pastor, and I went to somebody's awards, and their buyer agent was the entertainment that night. I said, "Dear Lord, please don't let me be the entertainment on Saturday night. And please, Lord, don't make me make Andrew's service on Sunday." Those are my two prayers. Please, Lord, keep me out of those two places. I don't want to do anything that makes the sermon, and I don't want to be the entertainment on Saturday night. Please, God.
Oh my God. Yeah, John actually told us, he said, many of you all don't know this. And he said, but Mark can attest to this. He said, I am always one decision away from stupid. He said, I took a loaded gun into an airport just a few months ago. And he said, let me just tell you, that didn't turn out very good. He said, that wasn't one of my smartest days. And Mark said, I won't even tell you all what trouble that caused us.
And that's the thing. You can kind of watch them watching him. It's like that. You can kind of see they're perched and ready just in case. Totally. I remember when we went to Israel, and we went and rode the camels after we were at the Dead Sea. We got to go ride. With John, it's always something new and exciting. So we were all at this belly dancing thing. I guess that's belly dancing is what they do. I don't remember. We were in this big old tent. We were all eating dinner, and then we were belly dancing. And I know you can just kind of see them watching, going, John, keep it under control. No stupid tonight, John. It was cute. You just kind of almost sense it and see it. Yeah.
He's so funny. He said, but you know what? At 77, he said, I can do stupid stuff and people just laugh at me.
Well, that reminds me of the time Mo called me. It's been a few years, and she's 80 something, right? How's Mo? 80 something?
Yeah.
She calls me and says, hey, Linda, I've just done something really stupid. And my first thought was, oh my God, we're not going to be finished doing stupid crap when we're 80 something. This is not very refreshing. And then when I thought about it, I thought, yeah, I guess we're never completely out of stupid. But anyway, it was very disheartening to know at 80 something, we won't have it all figured out and quit doing stupid. That was not what I wanted to hear, but it is reality, I'm sure.
Good news is they've got good people around them to fix it when they do something stupid.
Well, and big people that aren't in the people pile, they apologize. They know they've done something stupid, and they apologize, and they didn't mean it, or their heart well enough that oh my goodness, there's no way this person would ever offend anybody or do anything. So that's you have to have a track record of that, so that when you do something stupid, there's grace. Yeah. Because they truly know your heart. Yeah. If they know your heart, they'll know it wasn't intentional.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to tell you, somebody asked him about, I know you were interested in the Holy Spirit stuff, and somebody asked him about that. And he didn't go deep on it, but he did say if you're trying to like feel the Holy Spirit more, he said the very first thing he would say is when you go to prayer time, instead of he said this is really hard to do too, and I know it's hard for me to do. He said instead of going with like here's all the things, he said if you want to hear from the Holy Spirit, you go and ask God what his agenda is. And then
Yeah.
he said if you can do that every single day and just like try to listen for a few minutes, he said that's how you strengthen your relationship with the Holy Spirit. But he actually said he said instead of not here are 7 things I want to talk to you about today, God, instead say what do you want to tell me today, and how can I hear the Holy Spirit more? And he said if you make that a part of your everyday prayer, then you will start to do that. So I actually put that in my phone to kind of start doing that too.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I think we could all accomplish so much more if we could tap into that Holy Spirit and listen, and when you feel it, act on it rather than pausing or hesitating or questioning.
Yep, absolutely.
Like I've always felt like it's such a big helper. It is such a big helper, but we don't utilize the help of the Holy Spirit as much as we really could.
Yeah, and I think some people would say that it's their gut or intuition, and I would say it's the Holy Spirit, and you just don't even really know that.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh man, great stuff.
Such good stuff. Yeah, it was super, super good. I'm very excited to just continue to try to learn and be from him. Oh, wait, I did have one more. Crap. I forgot I highlighted this one. And this quote, it took me a minute to get, but then I was like, man, that's so true. Somebody said, when you feel like the enemy's always attacking you or like nothing's going right and you want to like get in the weeds with something, what do? And he said, I remember one quote that I'll never forget. There's an eagle in me that wants to soar, and there's a hippo in me that wants to roll around in the mud, and I get to choose which one it is.
Oh gosh, say that one again. That's good.
He said, there's an eagle in me that wants to soar, and there's a hippo in me that wants to roll around in the mud, and I get to choose which one I choose. I loved that. I thought that is so true, because there are some times where you do want to roll around in the mud because you get mad about something.
Yes, or you only want to focus on what's not going right or whatever.
Yeah, but he said everybody has those two inside of you. You just have to choose which one you want to be that day.
That's awesome. That's so good. Man, such great nuggets. This is going to be one of our best episodes. Wisdom from John, and we didn't even have to pay the price to go there. You did. That's right. There are perks to listening to our episodes.
That's right. You paid the price a lot of times and I've gotten the perks. So the one time I can give back.
And it's funny because I listen to this and I think of instances where, I had the Holy Spirit or the instinct, whatever you want to call it, nudge me on doing these things. And sometimes I've done them and sometimes I haven't. I think the one I think about is, just recently I just did something with Dr. Henry Cloud, just made a phone call, tried to make a connection for him. Yeah. And I instinctively knew it, and it was kind of nagging at me. And I'm like, Linda, you can either ignore this or you can act on it. You need to act on it. And so I acted on it, and it felt so good. And I don't know what will come out of it, but it was one of those moments when one of these 7 you said, that's, and it's almost like people ask, well, I hope that you get something out of this. I get the goodwill of the company, of everything, for doing this. So I love that, because I think when you can really tap into understanding the true meaning of what he's saying here and you can start acting on it, you're going to be shocked at the proximity you get of some amazing people and just some of the goodwill and good feeling that you'll get from doing some of these things. So I love this. This is like one of my most exciting areas to think about. How can I do this with more people? It's easy to do with a couple of people, but how can I have it to be my instinct with everybody I meet? You know what I mean? I know I can do it with people that are close, but how do I begin to, it just becomes natural of more people, not just a few?
Yeah, that's a great question to think about, because it's definitely natural for John. I mean,
oh yeah,
he just does it with anybody and everybody,
and you can tell he gets a joy out of it too.
Oh
the joy from doing it. Awesome.
And people always ask, like, how does he keep doing what he's doing? I mean, he was in like 9 different cities in 7 different days. Like, I don't even know how but I think it's because he does what you just said. Like he's in his passion zone. I mean, 100% of the time. So he can focus on it.
Yep. Well, and that's the trick, is how do you get to your passion and stay there with, 90% of your time, if at all possible, because it's going to give you energy that you didn't have. You're not going to have that energy if you're in the 80% that you don't enjoy. It's not your gift zone.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Well, if you like this episode, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give us a great review. We would appreciate that. But the greatest compliment you can pay us is to pass this podcast along to anyone that you think that would benefit from these conversations. And remember, if you have a question, a challenge, or an opportunity, or a great guest that you think would be good on the podcast, be sure and reach out to us at info@everything life and real estate. And Dana, I guess I'll see you next week in Vegas.
Yep, 3 days. See you then.
Well, I guess we'll do our podcast from there.
Yeah, we will.
Be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.